One night changed everything. Jasmine Taylor, an executive assistant at the lower run of Harrington Global, known for her sharp mind but often overlooked by the corporate elite. A striking black woman, Jasmine carried herself with a quiet grace and strength. Her skin, a deep, rich mahogany, glowed under the office lights, and her dark, almond-shaped eyes reflected intelligence and resolve. Her natural curls were pinned elegantly into a bun, revealing a smooth neckline and high cheekbones that seemed carved by an artist's hand. But beyond her beauty, there was a power in her presence, the kind that commanded attention without demanding it. Miles Harrington, the formidable CEO of Harrington Global, sat in his corner office, the glass walls revealing the skyline as dusk painted the city in amber hues. He looked out over his empire, but tonight all he could see was trouble. Scandals had rocked the corporation. Insider leaks, financial missteps, and now the board was breathing down his neck. His reputation was hanging by a thread. Tonight's private investor dinner was his last hope to convince stakeholders that the ship could still be righted. The only problem, his strategic partner and trusted confidant, Claudia Monroe, had just called to say she was out. A family emergency, she said, though Miles doubted the timing. Now, with just hours to spare, he had no one to stand by him in front of the investors. He needed someone sharp enough to engage, charming enough to win trust, and graceful enough to deflect unwanted questions. As he scrolled through his contacts in frustration, his eyes landed on a name he'd never have thought of before: Jasmine Taylor. She had always handled herself professionally at the office front desk. He remembered how she would catch things others missed, how she listened carefully, gave precise answers, and had an uncanny ability to read the room. Maybe, just maybe, she could pull it off. Taking a gamble, he pressed the intercom. A few minutes later, Jasmine walked in, holding her notepad. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Harrington?" she asked. Her voice calm but curious, her gaze sharp as ever. Miles studied her for a moment before speaking. "I need a favor, a big one. My companion for tonight's investor dinner bailed, and I need someone to step in. Someone who can handle pressure and hold intelligent conversation. I think you can do that." Jasmine's brows lifted slightly, surprised. "You want me to go with you to a dinner full of investors and executives?" "Yes," Miles said simply. "I don't have many options, and I trust you'll represent the company well. I won't lie, this is high stakes. You'll need to look the part and act the part. But I think you're capable of more than this job ever let you show." Jasmine hesitated, her heart pounding. This could be the opportunity of a lifetime, but it could also end her career if she failed. Still, something inside her refused to shrink from the challenge. Taking a slow breath, she nodded. "All right, I'll do it." Miles gave a small, approving smile. "Good, you have 3 hours to get ready. The driver will pick you up." At exactly 7:55 p.m., a sleek black limousine pulled up in front of Jasmine's apartment. She stepped out in an elegant emerald green gown that hugged her curves, with delicate silver jewelry catching the light. Her makeup was subtle yet powerful, highlighting her strong cheekbones and full lips. As she stepped into the limo, Miles looked her over with a hint of surprise and something close to admiration. "You look incredible," he said. Slightly stunned, Jasmine smiled faintly, her nerves buried deep beneath layers of confidence. "Thank you. I figured it wouldn't do to show up underdressed." When they arrived at the upscale venue, filled with men in tailored suits and women in designer dresses, Jasmine held her head high. As they entered the grand hall, conversation quieted for a brief moment as heads turned to look at the stunning woman on Miles Harrington's arm. The evening began tensely, but soon enough, Jasmine proved her worth. When one of the board members asked a sharp question about Harrington Global's integrity, Jasmine smoothly interjected with an insightful comment about the company's community initiatives, something she had quietly organized but had never been acknowledged for. Her voice was steady, her tone warm, but intelligent. Investors started to take notice. At one point, an influential investor, Mr. Whitmore, leaned in and asked Miles, "Where have you been hiding this brilliant young woman? She knows her stuff." Miles chuckled, glancing at Jasmine. "I guess I underestimated my own team." Later in the evening, as the crowd thinned and Miles and Jasmine stood near the balcony overlooking the city, he turned to her. "You were remarkable tonight. You turned some serious heads and minds." Jasmine smiled, feeling the power of having finally been seen. "Thank you. I'm glad I could help." Miles studied her for a long moment, something shifting in his gaze. "I think it's time you stop sitting behind that desk. There's a lot more you could be doing here, Jasmine, if you want it." Her eyes sparkled, confidence growing. "I do." From that night on, everything changed. Miles began giving Jasmine more responsibility, including her in key meetings and decisions. Her voice, once unheard, became one of the sharpest in the room. What started as a desperate decision turned out to be the best move Miles ever made. And Jasmine? She had finally stepped into the spotlight she was born to own. But not everyone was thrilled about Jasmine's sudden rise. Vanessa Caldwell, Miles' ex-girlfriend and head of public relations at Harrington Global, had been watching closely. A stunning woman with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, Vanessa had always enjoyed her exclusive access to Miles, both professionally and personally. When she saw Jasmine effortlessly gliding through meetings and earning Miles' trust, jealousy bloomed like a thorn in her chest. To Vanessa, Jasmine was nothing more than a receptionist who didn't belong in the upper echelons of power, and certainly not beside Miles. At the next company luncheon, Vanessa leaned in to a small group of executives, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Funny how quickly some people rise when they catch the right man's eye, isn't it?" she murmured, glancing meaningfully at Jasmine and Miles, seated together across the room. The rumor spread like wildfire, whispers that Jasmine and Miles were far more than professional, that her promotion wasn't earned but slept for. Jasmine heard the murmurs in the hallways. Though she kept her head high, a quiet storm brewed inside her. She knew she'd have to prove herself twice over now. Not just to lead, but to silence the rumors threatening to undermine her. Jasmine stood in front of the mirror in the lavish ladies' bathroom, fixing her lipstick, when she heard the door swing open sharply. The sharp click of heels echoed against the marble floor, and when Jasmine looked up, Vanessa stood behind her. Arms folded, eyes cold. "So," Vanessa said, leaning casually against the sink, "enjoying your new position? You've certainly climbed fast. Almost too fast." Jasmine raised a brow but stayed calm. "Is there something you want, Vanessa?" Vanessa's smile was ice. "I want you to know this little charade won't last. You think because Miles is entertained by you, you've got a permanent seat at the table? Think again." Jasmine turned to face her fully, her voice even. "Whatever you think is happening between Miles and me, you're wrong. We're not in a relationship, but honestly, if we were, you'd be the first to know, judging by how obsessed you are." Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't get smart with me. You're walking around here like you own the place, like you've earned something. But let me make it clear, I will ruin you. If you don't back off and stop cozying up to Miles, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are and where you came from." Jasmine laughed softly, shaking her head. "You know what, Vanessa? You've got a sick mind. This isn't about Miles. It's about the fact that a black woman like me now has a seat at your table. That's what really bothers you, isn't it? My presence threatens you." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "A position you won't keep. Watch your back, Jasmine. You're standing in a place you don't belong, and I'll be the one to take you down." Jasmine met her glare, unshaken. "Good luck with that." The next morning, the office buzzed with low whispers as Jasmine walked in. She could feel the stares following her, judging, assuming. Emails slowed when she passed, and hushed conversations died abruptly when she entered a room. But Jasmine refused to let them see her sweat. She walked with her head high, her heels clicking confidently against the marble floors. By midday, she decided enough was enough. Instead of hiding from the rumors, she walked straight into the executive conference room where a few key department heads had gathered. "I just want to address something since it seems to be the hot topic," Jasmine began, her voice calm but firm. The room stilled. "There's been a lot of gossip about how I've gotten where I am. Let me be clear. I'm here because I earned it. I worked harder than anyone gives me credit for. And if anyone has doubts about my skills or professionalism, I'll be happy to prove myself in any room any day. But if you think I'm going to shrink or step back because people are uncomfortable with seeing a black woman in this position, think again." The silence was thick, but there was also a spark of respect in a few pairs of eyes. Meanwhile, Miles was in his office reviewing reports when his VP, Mark, hesitantly knocked and stepped in. "Hey Miles, just a heads up. People are talking about you and Jasmine," Mark said carefully. "Vanessa's been stirring things up." Miles' jaw tightened, the vein in his temple pulsing. "What kind of talk? That she's where she is because of you and not her talent?" Miles stood abruptly, pushing back from his desk. "Unbelievable," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. His eyes darkened with anger. Without a word, he left his office, heading straight for Vanessa's. Knocking once, he stepped inside without waiting for permission. He closed the door sharply, and Vanessa, caught off guard. "If I hear one more word of that nonsense you're spreading about Jasmine, I will personally see to it that you're out of this company so fast you won't have time to pack a box. Do I make myself clear?" Vanessa's eyes widened, but she recovered quickly, feigning innocence. "I don't know what you mean, Miles. People are talking." "No, you started them," Miles snapped. "You think I don't know? Let me also make something else clear. Jasmine got where she is because she's sharp, capable, and exactly what this company needs right now. You're jealous because you've been sitting comfortable, and she's rising on merit. If you can't work with her, maybe you don't belong here anymore." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving Vanessa pale and seething. Later that evening, Miles called Jasmine into his office. "I heard what you've been dealing with," he said, his tone softer, filled with regret. "I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner." Jasmine smiled faintly. "I can fight my own battles, but thanks." He looked at her for a long moment, admiration in his eyes. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here, Jasmine. Don't let anyone make you think you don't deserve it." She met his gaze, standing tall. "Don't worry, I won't." And with that, Jasmine walked out of his office, stronger than ever, a woman who wouldn't be silenced, no matter how many tried. A week later, Harrington Global hosted a charity gala, a glamorous event filled with clients, investors, and top executives. Jasmine arrived in a sleek burgundy gown that complemented her smooth complexion, determined to focus on work and avoid the whispers still lingering in the halls. As she made her way to the refreshment table, a tall man with a charming smile and confident air approached her. "Quite the event, isn't it?" he said smoothly, handing her a glass of champagne. Jasmine glanced up, surprised by the stranger's easy manner. "It is," she replied, accepting the glass. "And you are?" "Darren Caldwell," he said, extending a hand. "Consultant. I've worked with Harrington on and off for a few years." The name Caldwell tugged at Jasmine's memory, but she couldn't place it. Still, Darren was charismatic, with sharp gray eyes and a smile that could disarm anyone. To her surprise, Darren spent most of the night by her side, engaging her in clever conversation. He asked about her career, her ambitions, and listened intently, laughing at her jokes, even complimenting her strength for handling things with grace. By the end of the evening, as people began to leave, Darren leaned in slightly, his voice low and smooth. "I've really enjoyed talking with you, Jasmine. You're not what I expected." Would you like to have dinner sometime? Just us. No work. Jasmine hesitated, charmed but wary. She agreed to think about it. What she didn't know was that Darren was Vanessa's cousin, planted to get close to her, dig up dirt, and report back anything that could be used to take her down. For Darren, this wasn't just a date, it was a trap. A few days later, Jasmine agreed to meet Darren for dinner at a sophisticated, low-lit restaurant downtown. She arrived dressed elegantly, in a fitted black dress and subtle jewelry, keeping her demeanor professional, but open. Darren was already waiting at the table when she arrived, standing to greet her with that same disarming smile. "You look stunning, Jasmine," he said smoothly, pulling out her chair. "Thank you, Darren," she replied with a polite smile, sitting gracefully. As the waiter took their orders, Darren leaned in, focusing on her with sharp intensity. "So," he began, swirling his glass of wine, "I have to say, I'm really impressed with how you've been handling things at Harrington. Not everyone could deal with that kind of pressure and still manage to rise." Jasmine smiled carefully. "Thank you. It hasn't been easy, but I focus on the work." Darren chuckled. "I'm sure. And Miles Harrington. He seems to value you a lot. Some say maybe more than just professionally." Jasmine's smile thinned slightly. "Miles respects hard work, that's all." Darren raised an eyebrow, fading innocence. Of course. I was just curious. You know how people talk." Something about the way he said it made Jasmine's guard go up. She took a sip of her drink, studying him quietly. "And what do you think, Darren? Since you seem to know what people say?" He gave a charming grin, but there was a flicker of something calculating in his eyes. "I think you're a smart woman, ambitious, and smart women know how to use their opportunities." Jasmine's expression cooled slightly. "I earn my opportunities. Always have." There was a pause. Darren leaned back, watching her carefully as though measuring her response. "So what are you hoping for next, Jasmine? A bigger role? Maybe something even closer to the top?" he asked, casually, but his words were too pointed to be innocent. Jasmine's mind raced. Why was he so interested in her career moves? Why was he so focused on Miles? She kept her voice calm, but sharp. "I'm focused on doing my job well. Nothing more, nothing less." And honestly, Darren, these sound like questions someone from HR should be asking, not a casual dinner date. Darren chuckled, trying to play it off. "Just making conversation, Jasmine. You're an intriguing woman, hard to read." "Maybe that's intentional," she said smoothly, meeting his gaze without flinching. By the time dessert was served, Jasmine knew something wasn't right. Darren was charming, but too curious, asking about Miles, her role, even Vanessa in roundabout ways. As they left the restaurant, Darren walked her to her car, leaning close. "I had a great time tonight," he murmured. "Hope we can do this again soon." Jasmine smiled politely, but her eyes were cold now. "We'll see, Darren. Good night." Sliding into her car, she watched him in the rearview mirror as he stood there, watching her drive away, his smile slipping into something darker. Jasmine gripped the steering wheel tighter. Something told her this wasn't the last of Darren Caldwell, but next time, she'd be ready. The next morning, Jasmine sat at her desk, sharp eyes scanning her screen as she dug deep into Darren Caldwell's background. It didn't take long for her suspicions to be confirmed. Vanessa's cousin, indeed. A man with a reputation for getting information and playing both sides. She wasted no time marching straight into Miles' office, closing the door firmly behind her. "We need to talk," she said, her tone serious. Miles looked up from his desk, concern already on his face. "What's wrong?" Jasmine sat down, hands folded. "Darren Caldwell. I went on that dinner you know about, and now I know why he was so curious. He's Vanessa's cousin." Miles's expression darkened instantly. "What?" "Yeah," Jasmine nodded. "And he spent the whole night fishing for dirt. About you, about me." Miles stood abruptly, his jaw tight. "I'm going to deal with Vanessa. She's gone too far." But Jasmine shook her head, a small, calculating smile playing at her lips. "No, let me handle this. I have a plan. Trust me." Reluctantly, Miles sat back down. "What are you thinking?" Jasmine's eyes gleamed. "We let her walk into her own trap." Meanwhile, Darren was on the phone with Vanessa, eager. "Jasmine agreed to have dinner with me," he told her. "I asked a lot of careful questions, but I think she's on edge. You were right about her being close to Miles." Vanessa's voice purred through the line, satisfied. "Perfect. I'll meet you tonight. There's something I need to confess that will make this even better." That night over dinner, Vanessa leaned in close, her expression faux regretful. "I'll be honest, Darren," she whispered. "I've been with Miles for a while. I only went out with Miles to help him look the part in front of investors. But it's not fair for him to use me, and for her to rise like that. We both know Jasmine doesn't belong here." Darren smirked. "Don't worry, Vanessa. I'll help you bring them both down." The next afternoon, Jasmine's phone rang, Darren's name flashing across the screen. She let it ring twice before answering, keeping her tone casual. "Jasmine," Darren said smoothly, "I was hoping we could have dinner again. There are things I'd like to discuss. Maybe pick up where we left off." Jasmine smiled to herself, already anticipating his move. "Dinner sounds great, Darren. Actually, there's something I need to tell you too. It's time you heard it from me." Darren practically beamed through the phone. "Perfect, tomorrow night?" "Tomorrow," she confirmed, voice sweet as honey. The next evening, they met at an upscale restaurant. Darren was charming as ever, leaning in, offering smiles. Clearly expecting Jasmine to drop a confession, he could run straight back to Vanessa. As their entrees arrived, Jasmine leaned in close, lowering her voice just enough to draw him in. "Look, Darren, I wasn't going to say anything, but I know you've been curious. The truth is, Miles and I are together," she whispered, her eyes darting around as if to make sure no one was listening. Darren's eyes lit up with triumph. "But listen," she added, putting on a convincing sigh. "The only reason I even went out with you was to stop the rumors. You know how people talk. I thought if they saw me with someone else, it would die down. But honestly, I shouldn't have dragged you into it." Darren smiled slyly, nodding. "Don't worry, Jasmine, I'm glad you told me. Your secret's safe with me." But Jasmine knew exactly where he was heading next. The next morning, Vanessa was brimming with excitement, strutting into the boardroom for the company-wide meeting. Her smile was razor-sharp as she stood in front of everyone, eyeing Jasmine and Miles smugly. "I think before we move on," Vanessa began loudly, "everyone should know the truth about our CEO and his special assistant. How Jasmine has earned her rise." Jasmine, seated at the table beside Miles, didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly picked up a remote and clicked a button on the projector behind Vanessa. Suddenly, recorded audio of Darren and Vanessa's dinner played out. "We both know Jasmine doesn't belong here. Don't worry, Vanessa, I'll help you bring them both down." The room fell silent, jaws dropping as Vanessa spun around, pale as a ghost. Miles stood slowly, fixing Vanessa with a cold stare. "Well, Vanessa," he said quietly but firmly, "I think we've all heard enough." Vanessa's trap had turned on her, and everyone saw the truth at last. The room stayed deathly quiet, the echoes of Vanessa and Darren's incriminating words still hanging in the air. Vanessa, realizing the weight of what had just been exposed, tried to recover, her voice shaky but still laced with desperation. "This isn't what it sounds like," she stammered, glancing around at the shocked faces of the company's top executives. "This is all being twisted." Miles raised a hand, silencing her. His voice was calm but razor-sharp. "Enough, Vanessa." He took a slow step toward her, his eyes locked on hers. "You've been spreading lies about one of the hardest-working employees here, attempting to manipulate my leadership and conspiring to sabotage not only Jasmine, but this entire company for your personal vendetta. You think we don't see that now?" A ripple of murmurs filled the room as others nodded in agreement. Vanessa's face turned red, then pale, her usual confident smirk now gone. Miles, wait. No, he said firmly. There's no coming back from this. Turning to the room, Miles straightened his shoulders. Effective immediately. Vanessa Caldwell is terminated from Harrington Global. I won't tolerate sabotage or personal agendas that undermine the integrity of this company or its people. Security was quietly summoned, and though professional, their presence was clear. Please gather your things, Vanessa, Miles said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Vanessa's eyes filled with rage and disbelief as she looked at Jasmine, who sat calmly, her head high. You think you've won, Vanessa hissed quietly as she passed Jasmine on her way out. Jasmine gave her a cool, steady look. I didn't have to win, Vanessa. You lost all on your own. As the doors closed behind Vanessa, Miles turned to Jasmine, a soft but proud smile tugging at his lips. I hope you know you've not only earned your place here, Jasmine, but you've earned everyone's respect. Some of the other executives in the room, who had been skeptical before, now nodded in agreement. I do now, Jasmine said, smiling for real this time. As she left the meeting room, heads turned, but not with whispers this time. With respect. Jasmine had weathered the storm and come out stronger, a woman who stood her ground and won with grace. Later that afternoon, Jasmine was called to Miles' office. She straightened her blouse, still adjusting to the whirlwind of the day, and knocked lightly before stepping inside. Miles sat behind his large oak desk, looking more serious than she'd seen him in weeks. Have a seat, Jasmine, he said quietly, gesturing to the chair across from him. She sat down, her brow slightly furrowed. Everything okay? Miles leaned forward, hands clasped together. He took a long breath before speaking. I've been thinking. Vanessa may have been wrong about many things, but she might have accidentally stumbled on something we should consider. Jasmine blinked, confused. What do you mean? Miles met her gaze steadily. It would look good for the company if I were involved with someone as sharp, as brilliant as you. After everything that happened today, the board agrees. They're willing to support us if you're willing to play along. Jasmine's jaw dropped. You're asking me to fake date you? For the company? Miles held her gaze, his voice softer now. Not just for the company. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Jasmine's heart thudded in her chest. She had expected a thank you, maybe even a raise, but this. Miles, she stammered, searching for words. This is a lot. I don't know what to say, he smiled gently, sensing her inner turmoil. I know, I'm not expecting an answer right now. Take your time, Jasmine, think about it. Still stunned, Jasmine rose from her chair. I will. I need to think. As she walked out, her mind swirled with questions. Was this real or just another game? Jasmine sat on her couch, still in her work clothes, staring at her phone. Her mind was spinning from what Miles had said. Finally, she took a deep breath and dialed her best friend Layla, the one person she could trust to give her honest advice. Girl, it's been a minute. Layla's voice rang with excitement as she answered. You must have tea if you're calling me this late. Jasmine let out a nervous laugh. Layla, you have no idea. I need you to listen, okay? And don't judge me until I finish. Layla instantly got serious. All right, what's going on? Talk to me. Jasmine hesitated before blurting it out. Miles, my boss Miles. He called me into his office today and said he wants us to pretend to be together for the company. And then he added that he kind of wants it for himself too. There was a long pause on the other end. Wait, what? Layla nearly shouted. Are you telling me your CEO wants to fake date you and also really date you? Jasmine, this sounds like a corporate soap opera. I know, Jasmine groaned, flopping back against the couch. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Like, is this even real life? Layla exhaled slowly. Okay, slow down. First of all, how do you feel? I mean, putting the company aside, Do you like him? Because that's a dangerous game to play if your heart's not in it. Jasmine went quiet for a moment. I don't know, Layla. I respect him. And yeah, there's something there. But this whole situation, it feels complicated. Like, what if I say yes and it blows up in my face? Layla softened her voice. Girl, listen. You worked too hard to let anyone, even Miles, play games with your future. You need to figure out what you want. Not what's good for the company, not what makes him comfortable. What's right for you? Jasmine nodded, even though Layla couldn't see her. Yeah, you're right. I need to think about what I really want. Thanks, Lay. Always, girl. And if you need me to pull up and slap a CEO, say the word. Jasmine laughed for real this time. I'll keep that in mind. Still, as she hung up, the decision weighed heavily on her heart. But at least now she wasn't facing it alone. The next morning, Jasmine walked into the office with a sense of calm determination. She had spent the night thinking, replaying every word Miles had said, every warning Layla had given her. She knew she needed to speak her truth, clearly and confidently. By noon, she was standing in front of Miles' office, taking a breath before knocking. Come in, his familiar voice called. Jasmine stepped inside. Miles looked up from his desk, surprised but attentive. Jasmine, he said softly, I wasn't expecting to see you so soon. She closed the door behind her and sat down across from him, meeting his gaze directly. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, she began, her voice steady. And I need to be honest with you. Miles leaned forward slightly, watching her carefully. I have worked way too hard to get where I'm at, she said firmly. I fought through being overlooked, underestimated, and having people like Vanessa try to tear me down. I earned my position, and I'm not about to let anyone think I'm here because of some relationship with the CEO. Miles nodded slowly, as if he expected that answer, but waited for her to continue. That being said, Jasmine added, her tone softening just a little, I'm willing to be your +1 at company events. I get that it may help the image of the company, and I'm not against supporting that. But if you're serious about anything more, she paused, her eyes locking onto his, then it has to be real. No games, no pretending. Miles exhaled, something like relief and respect crossing his face. I hear you, he said quietly. And honestly, I didn't want it to be a game either. I just didn't know how to say it without risking what we have. Or what you've built. Jasmine gave a small smile, tilting her head. Well, now you know. I'm not here to be anyone's cover story, Miles. If you want me, you want me. Not for the board, not for appearances, but for real. Miles stood slowly, walking around the desk to stand in front of her. Then, for what it's worth, Jasmine, I do want you. For real. For a moment, there was only silence between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Jasmine rose from her chair, offering him a small but genuine smile. Good. Then we'll see where this goes, carefully. But on my terms. Miles smiled back, his eyes warm with admiration. On your terms. As Jasmine left the office, she felt lighter, in control of her destiny. And for the first time in a long while, hopeful about what might come next. The day of the annual Harrington Global charity fundraiser arrived quickly. The first official event where Jasmine would appear on Miles' arm as his +1. As she stood in front of her mirror at home, adjusting the soft satin of her sleek emerald green gown, Jasmine took a deep breath. This is for me. I'm walking in there as someone who earned her place. When she arrived at the event, the room was already buzzing. Executives, clients, and investors mingling in designer suits and glittering gowns. But the moment Jasmine stepped in, walking beside Miles, the air shifted. Conversation slowed, heads turned. She held her chin high, her natural curls falling elegantly over her shoulders, her makeup flawless but understated. Miles, ever the picture of calm, gently placed a hand at the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd like she belonged there. Because she did. From across the room, Layla, who was covering the event as part of the PR team, caught Jasmine's eye and gave her an approving nod and a sly smile. But not everyone was thrilled. Whispers stirred like ripples through water. Is that her? I thought the rumors weren't true. She looks incredible, but wow, Miles really brought her? Well, she did hold her own against Vanessa. Maybe she earned that spot. Jasmine heard all whispers, but didn't flinch. As the night went on, Miles introduced her confidently to key investors. This is Jasmine Taylor, my executive liaison, Miles said proudly, emphasizing her role. She's been instrumental in turning things around this quarter. Jasmine shook hands gracefully, engaging in conversations about company projects with ease and insight, surprising many who had only seen her as the woman behind the front desk. By mid-evening, even the most skeptical board members were nodding along as she discussed strategies for rebuilding company image post-scandal. Standing near the balcony, Miles leaned closer to her, speaking quietly so only she could hear. You're killing it tonight, Jasmine smiled, sipping her champagne. Told you, I'm not here for show. He grinned. I never doubted that. But across the room, Darren, now clearly an outsider after the Vanessa scandal, watched them with a sour expression. He wasn't part of this inner circle anymore, and Jasmine was. As the night wound down, Miles and Jasmine stood together near the entrance, watching people leave, many offering Jasmine warm smiles and congratulations. Looks like the company's getting used to seeing us together, Miles murmured. Jasmine smiled, feeling in control of her story for the first time. Good. Because I'm just getting started. The charity event was winding down, but Jasmine could still feel the buzz in the air. People had finally begun to see her for her true worth, and not just as Miles' date, but as a force inside Harrington Global. As she gathered her clutch and prepared to leave, she felt a presence behind her. So this is how you play the game, huh? Jasmine turned slowly to see Darren, leaning casually against a column, his tie loosened, a bitter smirk on his face. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? He sneered. Walking around like you own the place, like you didn't sleep your way to the top. Jasmine took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. You still don't get it, do you, Darren? She said coolly. I'm here because I earned my place. Something you and Vanessa couldn't handle, because you thought people like me don't belong at the top. Darren laughed bitterly. Yeah, keep telling yourself that. You think Miles actually cares? You're just a shiny new distraction for him. He'll move on when he's bored. Jasmine stepped closer, her eyes sharp and unwavering. You know, I actually feel sorry for you, Darren, she said quietly but firmly, because you think everything has to be manipulation and lies to get ahead. But here's the difference between us. I don't have to destroy others to win. I just do the work. And Miles, he sees that. Everyone sees that now. Darren's smirk faltered for a moment, his jaw tightening. And by the way, Jasmine added with a smile, your little spy games, they're over. You've got no one left to feed your lies to. Vanessa's gone. The board knows everything. And after tonight, so does everyone else. Darren scoffed. You think this is the end? Jasmine gave him a sharp, confident smile. No, this is the beginning, for me. But you're irrelevant now. As she turned to walk away, Miles approached from the side, having caught enough of the conversation to understand. Everything good here? He asked, slipping a hand gently on Jasmine's back, protective but letting her lead. Perfect, Jasmine said, glancing back one last time at Darren, whose expression was now a mix of anger and defeat. Without another word, she walked out of the venue beside Miles, leaving Darren in the past and stepping fully into her future. Later that night, After the event had ended and the city skyline glittered against the dark sky, Miles and Jasmine found themselves in his private penthouse, away from the stares and whispers of the office world. Miles poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Jasmine as they stepped out onto his balcony, the cool night breeze wrapping around them. "To us," he said softly, raising his glass. Jasmine gave him a curious smile as she clinked her glass to his. "To us?" Miles smiled, watching her carefully. "To survival. To making it through tonight. To you, for showing everyone exactly who you are." Jasmine chuckled lightly, taking a sip. "It wasn't easy. You saw Darren. But I wasn't about to let him, or anyone, steal what I've worked for." Miles leaned against the railing, studying her in the moonlight. "You know," he started, swirling the wine in his glass, "I've been meaning to say something since the first night we attended an event together." Jasmine raised a brow. "Yeah?" Miles nodded, looking a little more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "The first time I walked into that room with you, I knew people would stare. I knew the whispers would start. But what I didn't expect," he said, turning to face her fully, "was how proud I would feel standing next to you. You carried yourself like you owned the room, even when I knew you were probably nervous. And that night," he paused, searching for the right words. "That night," he continued softly, "I realized it wasn't just your beauty, though, believe me, Jasmine, you are breathtaking. But it was your strength, your fire. You have this way of walking into a space and making people rethink everything they thought they knew. And it shook me. You shook me." Jasmine's breath caught for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. "Miles," she whispered, a little stunned at the raw honesty in his voice. He reached out gently, brushing a stray curl from her face. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known, inside and out. And tonight, when you stood up to Darren, you proved to everyone what I've already known for a while now." Jasmine swallowed, emotions swirling in her chest. "Which is, that you're the one I want beside me, not just at company events, but in life." For a moment, Jasmine said nothing, watching him with searching eyes. Then a soft smile touched her lips. "I guess, if we're being honest, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you either." Miles stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "Then maybe we stop pretending." "Jasmine." She squeezed his hand softly, her smile widening. "Yeah, maybe we do." As they stood on the balcony, the city lights glowing around them, Jasmine realized that for the first time, she wasn't standing in anyone's shadow. She was right where she belonged. Miles gently held Jasmine's hand as they stood on the balcony, the hum of the city below them. The weight of the past few weeks, the rumors, Vanessa's schemes, the tension at work, seemed to fade in that quiet moment between them. Jasmine looked up at him, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her wineglass, her heart pounding. "So," she said softly, her eyes searching his, "what happens now, Miles? You said you wanted this. But I need to know what this is. I need to know you're not just caught up in everything that's happened." Miles set his glass down on the nearby table and stepped closer to her, taking both of her hands gently in his. His voice was low but sincere, like he was speaking from the very center of his heart. "Jasmine, I've never been more certain of anything," he said. "This isn't about the company or the board or shutting down rumors. It's about you. I want to be with you, really with you. No pretending, no +1 for appearances. I want you in my life." Jasmine felt her chest tighten with emotion, hearing words she had never expected, but always secretly longed for. "Miles, I'm not someone you just pull into a relationship for convenience. I've worked hard to build who I am. And if we do this, it's gotta be real. No hiding, no secrets, no making me feel like I'm just a part of some image you need to uphold." He smiled, nodding. "I know, and I don't want to hide it. I want to show everyone that I'm with you, because I admire and respect you, because I care about you. Jasmine, I see you, not just for what you've done for the company, but for who you are, strong, brilliant and beautiful. Jasmine felt her throat tighten, her eyes growing moist. You really mean that? Miles stepped even closer, gently cupping her face. Every word. She let out a small, breathless laugh. Well, I guess we're not pretending anymore, are we? His smile was soft, but his eyes were intense with feeling. Not anymore. And before she could say another word, Miles leaned in, brushing his lips against hers, a kiss that was gentle, but filled with unspoken feelings, finally set free. When they finally pulled away, Jasmine looked up at him, a real smile blooming on her face. So, we're really doing this? She whispered, her hand still resting on his chest. Miles grinned, leaning his forehead against hers. Yeah, we are. You and me. She laughed softly, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. All right, Miles Harrington, let's see where this goes. He kissed her again, deeper this time, as if sealing the promise between them. For the first time, Jasmine wasn't just fighting to hold her place. She was standing strong in her worth, and with someone who saw her completely. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the city lights blinking below them, Jasmine knew this was only the beginning, not just of a relationship, but of a whole new chapter in her life. Just when things seemed to be settling into place, Vanessa struck again. Unable to stomach her downfall or watch Jasmine thrive, she took her vendetta to the next level, this time outside the walls of Harrington Global. The next morning, Jasmine's phone buzzed endlessly as she got ready for work. When she finally answered, Layla's voice came through, frantic. Girl, turn on the news, now. Confused, Jasmine flipped open her tablet and pulled up the media site Layla sent her. Her breath caught in her throat. Headline: CEO's girlfriend caught cheating? Jasmine Taylor spotted with mystery man. Is the romance with Harrington just a lie? Beneath it were grainy, heavily edited photos of Jasmine with a man she'd met briefly at a conference weeks ago. Mid-conversation, mid-laugh, strategically cropped to suggest intimacy. Jasmine's heart dropped. This is insane. This isn't even real. Layla was already throwing on a coat. I'm on my way to your place. Don't face this alone. Meanwhile, at the Harrington Global Tower, Miles was already on damage control. He'd seen the story the moment it broke. Get PR on the phone. I want every outlet that picked this up contacted and threatened with legal action if they don't retract. He snapped into his Bluetooth headset. He slammed his laptop shut and stormed out at his office. Find out where the leak came from, and I want proof. This is war. But beneath the professional fury was something more personal. Fear. Not of the scandal, but of what this might do to Jasmine. He knew her strength, but he also knew what it felt like to be publicly humiliated. To have your name twisted into something ugly, and she didn't deserve that. Layla burst into Jasmine's apartment and wrapped her in a tight hug. We are not letting her win. Not now. Not after everything you've built. Jasmine wiped a tear away, eyes hardening. No, she wants to ruin me. She'll find out the hard way. I'm not that easy to break. Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was Miles. I'm handling the press, he said the moment she answered. But I need to know you're okay. I'm not okay, Jasmine admitted, voice trembling. But I will be. I just need the truth to come out. Miles paused, then said firmly, then let's bring the truth forward, together. The next morning, the world outside Jasmine's apartment had turned into a circus. Cameras flashed, microphones jutted toward her face. A swarm of reporters surrounded her building entrance, shouting over each other, blocking her path as she tried to reach her car. Why did you cheat on Mr. Harrington, Jasmine? Is the baby his or the man in the photo? How long have you been seeing both men? Jasmine, dressed sharply in a tailored coat and heels, kept her head down and pushed through the chaos. She said nothing. She couldn't, not without it being twisted. Her hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel. This wasn't just an attack on her relationship. This was an attempt to destroy her reputation completely. By the time she arrived at Harrington Global, she was a ghost of herself, her usual poise replaced with silence. The stares from colleagues, the whispers in the hallways, they all clung to her like smoke. She closed her office door and didn't come out all day. She skipped lunch, ignored meetings, buried herself in work she couldn't even concentrate on. Late in the afternoon, a knock interrupted her silence. It was Miles. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. Jasmine nodded without turning from her window. "You shouldn't be seen in here with me. They already think the worst." Miles stepped in anyway, closing the door behind him. "Let them think what they want. I care about you." She finally turned to face him. Her eyes were red but dry now, past the tears into something deeper. "I didn't ask for this, Miles. I never wanted to be in the spotlight. I just wanted to do my job." "I know," he said gently, stepping closer, "and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this." Just then, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening. "It's the board," he said. "They've called an emergency meeting. They want to discuss your position, damage control." Jasmine closed her eyes. "So they're going to fire me to save face?" Miles didn't answer right away. "Not if I have anything to say about it." "But what if they don't care what you say?" she asked quietly. "Then I'll remind them who runs this company," he said, his voice like steel. "You're not going through this alone. I will fight for you, in that room and anywhere else they try to tear you down." Jasmine met his eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "Then let's fight." The boardroom at Harrington Global had never felt colder. 12 directors sat around the long mahogany table, their expressions a mix of discomfort, disapproval, and quiet calculation. At the head sat Miles Harrington, his jaw tight, his fingers interlaced in front of him. To his right, Jasmine sat poised in a slate-gray power suit, her chin lifted despite the weariness behind her eyes. She had chosen not to shrink today, no matter how badly she wanted to disappear. At the far end of the table, board chairwoman Margaret Holston cleared her throat. "Mr. Harrington, Ms. Taylor, as you're aware, recent media attention has drawn significant concern regarding the company's public image. Shareholder calls have spiked. This alleged affair, potential scandal, and Ms. Taylor's presence at the center of it, all place the company in a vulnerable position." A murmur of agreement followed. "Therefore," Margaret continued, "we are discussing whether it is in the best interest of the company for Miss Taylor to take a leave of absence or be formally released from her position." Miles sat forward, his voice low but deliberate. "No." That single word echoed like a thunderclap. "You can dress it up in PR language, but we all know this isn't about the company's best interest. It's about optics and fear. You're considering pushing out an employee who has done nothing wrong simply because she's visible now." "Miles," one board member began. "No," he repeated, firmer this time. "You want to talk about damage?" Removing Jasmine sends a clear message that gossip matters more than truth, and that women, especially black women, are expendable when things get uncomfortable. Gasps rippled softly. Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Harrington, you're emotionally involved. That compromises your judgment." That's when Jasmine stood. She didn't shout. She didn't waver. Her voice was calm and commanding. "Yes, Miles is emotionally involved. Because he knows who I am, not what the tabloids claim. I've served this company with integrity, intelligence, and unwavering professionalism." She looked each board member in the eye. "You all saw what I did during the investor crisis. I've earned my place here, and if my presence makes some of you uncomfortable, maybe it's because I didn't come up the way you expected. Not through family, not through privilege. I came up through grit." She stepped forward. "I won't take a leave of absence. I won't step down. but I will continue doing what I was hired to do. Unless you're prepared to explain to the public why you fired a black woman over a fabricated scandal that's already being dismantled. Silence. Then Margaret slowly sat back, folding her arms. The board will vote. After several tense minutes, the final count was in. 7-5. Jasmine would stay. Miles exhaled quietly. Jasmine closed her eyes, not in relief, but in resolve. As they left the room, Miles leaned toward her, voice low. That was powerful. Jasmine looked ahead, shoulders square. It had to be. I'm done letting people write my story. That evening, the camera crew arrived at Miles Harrington's penthouse, sleek, modern, and open to the glittering skyline. The setting was elegant but intimate, the perfect place for Jasmine and Miles to speak their truth. Maya Reeves, a respected investigative journalist, known for cutting through noise and chasing real stories, sat across from them with a calm, composed presence. The cameras rolled. The red light blinked on. Tonight, Maya began, I'm joined by Harrington Global's CEO, Miles Harrington, and executive liaison, Jasmine Taylor, the center of recent headlines regarding an alleged scandal that swept through both corporate and social media circles. Miles took Jasmine's hand gently, visibly supportive. We're here, he said, looking directly into the camera, to put an end to the speculation, the lies, and the attempts to destroy someone who has done nothing wrong. Jasmine nodded. This isn't just about me and Miles. It's about what happens when a woman, especially a black woman, begins to rise. The minute I stopped being invisible, someone decided I was a threat. Maya leaned forward. Are you referring to Vanessa Caldwell? Yes, Jasmine said calmly. Vanessa is Miles' ex-girlfriend. She orchestrated false rumors, leaked photos, and used her connections to try and ruin my reputation. But what she didn't count on was the truth catching up to her. Miles added, I stand by Jasmine, not just because of how I feel about her, but because she's done everything with integrity. I've seen it firsthand. The interview aired that same night on national television, and within minutes, social media exploded. But it wasn't just the interview people were talking about. A separate video had surfaced. Shot by a bystander at an upscale restaurant, it showed a clearly drunk Vanessa, slurring loudly into her cocktail as she ranted. Jasmine, Miss Goody-Goody, she laughed bitterly, pretending to be so perfect. But I'll tell you this, I slept with that investor. You know the one? The big fish? I step up when they were going to back out of the deal. I said what would it take to make it happen. That contract came after hours, honey. After I had sealed the deal. And Miles? He didn't know a damn thing. I made him look good. The internet went wild. Vanessa Caldwell exposes herself. This is wild. Imagine trying to ruin someone and accidentally ruin yourself. Jasmine Taylor equals Grace under fire. Vanessa? Career over. Who's sleeping their way to the top? Hashtag Vanessa. Within hours, the restaurant clip had over 3 million views, and the hashtag #WeStandWithJasmine was trending globally. By midnight, Harrington Global issued a formal statement. We are aware of the disturbing video involving former employee Vanessa Caldwell. Her actions and statements do not reflect the values of our company. We stand behind Jasmine Taylor and Miles Harrington fully. Back at the penthouse, Jasmine stood on the balcony, her phone buzzing non-stop with messages of support. Miles stepped beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. You are incredible tonight, he said softly. Jasmine leaned into him, a mix of relief and quiet strength in her eyes. So were you, we told our truth. And now? He asked. Jasmine looked out at the city lights and smiled. Now we live it. Openly, boldly, and without apology. A few weeks later, far from the flashing cameras and corporate chaos, Miles and Jasmine escaped to the coast of Santorini, where whitewashed buildings kissed the sky and the sea sparkled like scattered sapphires. On the terrace of their cliffside villa, the golden evening sun warmed their skin as they sat curled together on a cushioned daybed, sharing wine in silence. The peaceful kind that only comes when two people trust each other completely. Jasmine tucked her legs beneath her and looked out over the ocean, her curls dancing gently in the breeze. I needed this. Time to breathe again. To remember who I was before everything got loud. Miles nodded, his hand resting over hers. Me too. We survived a storm, Jazz. But you walked through fire. She smiled faintly. And didn't burn. Not all the way. He turned to her, rushing a kiss over her temple. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've been thinking a lot lately about what's next. Miles sat up a little. Okay. Jasmine took a breath and began. I don't want to go back to the same rhythm, reactive, chaotic. I want to be proactive. I've been talking to some folks on the foundation side of the company. They're doing real work, community programs, scholarships, female leadership outreach. Miles raised a brow. You're thinking of transferring? I'm thinking about making a different kind of impact, she said honestly. Not running from anything, just building something before people like Vanessa can tear it down. There was a long pause. I get it, Miles said carefully, though his tone was hesitant. But Jasmine, you are a leader. You belong in the boardroom too. She reached for his hand. And I love that you see me there. But maybe I want to be in a room where I'm not constantly having to fight to prove I deserve my seat. Maybe I want to be somewhere I can make space for others too. He exhaled, his thumb brushing hers. I don't love the idea, but if that's where your heart is, I'll support it. Every step. You always say the right thing. She smiled. He smirked. Only when I mean it. They leaned back, watching the sky turn lavender above the sea. Jasmine whispered, so where do you see us in 5 years? Miles turned his head slowly toward her. Together. Stronger. Building something. Not just in business, but in life. You, me, maybe a couple of little ones running around. Jasmine laughed, leaning into his chest. That's a bold vision, Mr. Harrington. He kissed the top of her head. You make me want things I never thought I'd want. She closed her eyes, letting herself believe in the peace, in the possibility of a future built not on survival, but on purpose, love, and choice. A few days after they returned from Santorini, Jasmine's phone rang just as she was finishing a report at her desk. Nancy Carter flashed across the screen. Director of the Harrington Global Foundation. Jasmine, Nancy said warmly. I hope you're settling back in. I know you needed a breather after everything. I'm getting there, Jasmine replied, smiling. Well, I won't waste your time. The board and I have been following your journey, and we believe your voice, your story, could change lives, especially for young women trying to break into the business world. We want you to seriously consider joining the foundation, not just to work with us, but to build something lasting. A mentorship program, led by you, for women with ambition and grit who just need someone to open a door. Jasmine's heart skipped. I don't expect an answer now, Nancy said, but I hope you'll think about it. You're more than qualified. You're necessary. After they hung up, Jasmine sat quietly, the weight of opportunity resting beautifully in her hands. That night, she and Miles curled up on his couch, candles flickering low, takeout containers forgotten on the coffee table. I need to talk to you, she said. Miles looked over immediately, his expression serious. Good or bad? Both, she admitted, then smiled. Nancy from the foundation called. They want me to lead a new mentorship initiative. It's the kind of work that lights me up. But it means I won't be at headquarters anymore. Miles exhaled, and leaned back. I hate the idea of not seeing you every day. I've gotten used to you being 3 doors down. She gave him a soft smile. I know. Miles paused, then reached for her hand. Then let's fix that part. Move in with me. Or better yet. He stood and walked to his briefcase. Jasmine watched with furrowed brows, until he turned around, holding a small velvet box. Miles. He dropped to one knee, eyes locked on hers. I don't want a temporary arrangement, Jasmine. I don't have any plans to ever end this, only to build with you. So, will you marry me? Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Yes, she whispered, laughing through emotion. But I'm not moving in with you until there's change in my last name. He slipped the ring on her finger. Then let's make it official. Can you put a wedding together in the next 2 weeks? Jasmine blinked. 2 weeks? I want to start forever before you start this new chapter. Let's begin it right. She looked at the ring, then at the man she once called the boss. Now, he was her partner, her person, her future. Jasmine nodded. 2 weeks. Let's do this. 2 weeks passed in a joyful blur. With Layla as her right hand, Jasmine pulled together a wedding that wasn't extravagant, but deeply personal, just like her love story. The ceremony took place in the lush backyard garden of Layla's aunt's home, on the edge of the city. Climbing roses framed the wooden arch. Soft string lights glowed in the trees, and rows of white chairs faced a small stone path, lined with lavender and baby's breath. It was quiet, sacred, and full of love, exactly what Jasmine had dreamed. As Jasmine stepped down the garden path, the soft instrumental version of At Last played in the background. She wore a simple ivory gown, off-shoulder with pearl detailing. Her natural curls were gathered into a soft bun, a few tendrils brushing her cheeks. Miles stood at the altar, his tailored cream suit crisp against the green of the garden, emotion shining in his eyes as she approached. Layla, beaming, stood to the side holding Jasmine's bouquet, having arranged every petal herself. Family and close friends looked on with tearful smiles. When the officiant nodded for the vows, Miles went first. He took her hands in his. Miles' vows. Jasmine, before I loved you, I respected you. And before I knew your heart, I admired your strength. You walked into my life and reminded me what integrity, courage, and grace look like in motion. You didn't need saving, but you saved me. I vow to protect your peace, to honor your purpose, and to stand beside you in every boardroom, every storm, and every morning after. I'm yours, by choice, by promise, and by love. Jasmine's eyes shimmered with tears. Her voice was steady, but full of feeling. Jasmine's vows. Miles, you saw me when others only looked. You listened when I had no voice, and believed in me when I was told to stay in the background. Loving you never meant losing myself. It meant becoming more. I vow to speak truth with kindness, to choose patience over pride, and to never stop building what we've started. With this ring, I give you my heart, my loyalty, and a love that doesn't pretend. It's real, and it's forever. A hush fell over the guests, followed by a quiet sniffle from Layla that made them both smile. You may now kiss your bride, the officiant said. And with a garden breeze brushing past them, and petals falling from above, Miles kissed Jasmine, the kiss of a new beginning. They walked back up the garden path as husband and wife, hand in hand, smiles wide, hearts full. Layla whispered, "Not bad for 2 weeks, huh?" Jasmine turned with a wink. It was perfect. 12 years later, the Harrington household was filled with the gentle chaos of love. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of their home. A beautifully restored brownstone tucked in a quiet corner of the city, as the smell of buttermilk pancakes and fresh strawberries filled the air. Jasmine stood in the kitchen in cozy slippers and an oversized tee, flipping pancakes with one hand and bouncing little Ava, their 4-year-old, on her hip. Across the room, Miles was seated on the floor with their middle child Elijah, age 7, piecing together a Lego spaceship with intense focus. Their oldest, Nia, 9 going on 16, lounged on the couch, pencil in hand, working through a weekend comic strip she was writing about a super mom CEO. Every Saturday morning was sacred. Phones off, meetings canceled, no headlines, no emergencies. Just family. "Daddy, can I have chocolate chips in my pancake?" Ava asked, pointing at the bowl. "You already have plenty in the batter," Jasmine said, laughing. "Any more and we're calling it dessert." Miles looked up with a grin. "I'll allow it. Saturday morning rules." "You always say that when you want to spoil them," Jasmine teased. "I learned from the best," he replied, standing up to kiss her cheek. As they gathered around the breakfast table, Nia set down her sketch pad. "When I grow up, I want to run a company and still make pancakes every Saturday. Like you guys." Jasmine exchanged a glance with Miles, her heart full. "You can do that, baby," Jasmine said, brushing a crumb from Nia's chin. "You can do anything. Just remember who you are and who's standing beside you." Elijah, between bites of pancake, asked, "Were we in your wedding?" Miles chuckled. "You weren't born yet, but you were definitely in our hearts." "I was in Mommy's heart?" Ava asked proudly. "In Mommy's heart, Daddy's dreams and God's plans," Jasmine said, leaning down to kiss the top of her daughter's curls. As the morning rolled on, the kitchen turned into a syrup-splattered, laughter-filled memory in motion. A far cry from the stormy boardrooms and scandal-fueled headlines of over a decade ago. Jasmine sat back for a moment, her hand in Miles', watching their children giggle and chase each other with napkins. This was everything she fought for. This was happiness. This was legacy. And as Saturday sunshine streamed across the table, Jasmine knew they were still building something beautiful. Together. The end. Hope you enjoyed this wonderful story from Green Tea Tales. Help our channel to grow with likes, shares, and subscribes.